So I'd like everybody to just start off with their introductions. Travis, we'll start with you.
Great. Nice to be here. It's an honor to be here. My name is Travis Cloyd. I'm the Global Futurist at Thunderbird School of Global Management and also a professor where I teach the Metaverse class. As well as being an educator, I'm also an entrepreneur and developer of a lot of immersive technologies.
Fantastic. Yeah. Deborah, could we hear from you?
Yep, absolutely. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. And thank you so much. So Deborah Weinswig, CEO and founder of CoreSight Research. We look at the intersection of retail and technology, which obviously that's where we've seen much of the success so far in the Metaverse, Web3. And we have a team with our clients. And so that's kind of our background there. And we believe that as we continue to move ahead, we'll see tremendous opportunity as it relates to revenue.
Great. Thank you, Deborah. You're breaking up a little bit. Maybe check your connection as we come back to you. Alvaro, could we hear from you?
Sure. And thanks, Sam, for having us. Good morning. My name is Alvaro Alvarez, and I am an investor, founder in a fund called Boost Capital out of Europe. Effectively, a lot of my career has been in venture capital. So for the past 13 years, I've been an investor in early stage startups across different verticals, mostly focused on consumer digital companies, the gaming space. So a lot of metaverse investments as well. And some other sectors that are focused on consumer experiences.
Ethan Janey from NFTLA.
Hey there, how's it going, guys?
Great.
I'd be on camera, but there's some sort of host disabling of it, so I'll be here on audio at least maybe until we get that going. Yeah, I'm here from NFTLA. We also have founded a company with my co-founders Jeff Kelly and Josh Krieger, the Edge of Company. We started with the Edge of NFT podcast back in March of 2021. A year later, we threw NFTLA, had really incredible turnout there, speakers like Mark Cuban and entertainers like Steve Aoki. And this year we're bringing NFTLA back again with a theme of reaching into the outer edges of all sorts of things beyond Web3 and NFT. Really excited to be here and see what kind of immersive experiences we bring to NFTLA this year.
Yeah, great. You should be able to share your video now, but let's move. Is that Rex Wong?
Hi.
How's it going?
Hi, Sam. Yeah, my name's Rex Wong, and I'm the CEO of Famecast. Famecast is a all-in-one creator operating system that helps creators create more content, amplify their audiences, and make more money. And we also operate a creator brand accelerator, which is, think of it as a Y Combinator, but for creator businesses, which is now $100+ billion economy, and it's growing about 50% per year. And so we help creators basically become entrepreneurs and build their brands, because a lot of them are great at what I call the right brain side of it, which is the creative side. But the left brain side, the financial literacy and the entrepreneurialism, that's what we're trying to teach them so that they can actually monetize and build businesses around their identities, basically.
Yeah. Thank you, Rex. Yeah, so where I'd like to start off is everyone on this call knows use cases of the metaverse and understands the future potential and all the benefits it can bring. So does some of the large companies, right? Like Facebook going completely into the metaverse by changing their name and so forth. However, we're seeing this huge issue, right? Which is there's a lack of conversion into the metaverse. The same people who picked up an Oculus are the same people who spend, hours every day gaming and hours every day online. It hasn't had the conversion that smartphones had, right? Where all of our parents and grandparents eventually moved to that. So I'm curious if anyone could weigh in on how they see the mass adoption actually coming forward, right? What is going to be the conversion that gets everybody into some form of metaverse? Is it going to be gaming? Is it going to be, Apple's potential release of VR? Is it going to be a large company? Is it going to be one of these smaller ones coming up? So Do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I could jump in. I mean, I think the metaverse is really just the natural evolution, the next era of the web, of the internet. It's, if you go back and you really think about, what is Web 3, what is Web 2, what is Web 1, right? Tim Berners-Lee invented www in 1989, and we had literally a decade of Web 1.0, where it took a lot of time for people to really figure out, aside from just writing content on a basic landing page or a website, just publishing content, we want to be able to contribute. We want to be able to write on top of it. Aside from just reading, we want to read and write. And that became the evolution of Web 2.0. And so we had a decade of Web 1.0, and we had 2 decades now, basically 2 decades of Web 2.0, as we're starting to accelerate and progress into this natural evolution of Web 3.0. So this metaverse thing is inevitable. And that's why companies like Facebook have changed the name to Meta, because they took that big risk on something that is obviously here for the long haul. But the Apple glasses, to me, are going to be that big watershed moment. They're the leader in consumer hardware, and people are going to want to acquire those devices for spatial computing to be able to partake in different iterations of the metaverse. But it's above just gaming. It's above just 2D, PC computing. It goes beyond. So it's just the natural evolution of how we compute.
Yeah, I like the word you use there, obvious, right? Because people who have really gone down this rabbit hole understand it is the obvious evolution that is to come. Does anyone else have an opinion on
definitely? Yeah, I mean, I think you made a really good point, Sam. I think you alluded to up front. We're in a bit of a metaverse situation here, right? I mean, if you were to ask somebody, 50 years ago, you give them the concept of what the metaverse would look like, this might not be that outlandish. One thing that I've noticed over people are tending to try to use them in ways that mimic things that we already do, and it's a bit of a false path, right? So people are setting up in the metaverse, look, we can replicate what reality is like. We can sit in a virtual lecture hall. Wouldn't that be great to have our lecture in a virtual lecture hall? Well, no, actually, right? There's a reason when we do this Zoom call, we're showing everybody full face, we're as close as possible, and we're not trying to look like a large lecture hall, because there are disadvantages to being in a large lecture hall. So I think, I don't know the specifics, I can't say the specifics, but as we evolve these technologies, I know for a fact they're going to be used in ways that are unique, right, to what we already do. They're not going to be mimics and recreations of things that already work for us, right? So that's an interesting trend I think we'll see developments in.
I'll pick up where Ethan left off, because I couldn't agree more. We've actually been building a lot in the metaverse for our clients who are mainly retail consumer. We've seen tremendous success. But when we first talked to them, so we were working with a hair tools company. And what was really interesting is that they were thinking just hair tools. I'm like, no, let's do these like outlandish hairstyles, right? So that, people, right, everyone's got, well, many people have hair in the metaverse, and so that they can go into this hair salon, they can buy these great hairstyles, and then they're learning about your hair tools. And so it did take kind of some time to get the C-suite on board with that. But once we did, it was unbelievable. We've done a lot of NFT projects, and right, of course, some of them, we did different kinds of auctions, some where you had to kind of buy different pieces, and then you put those together and you could redeem for, a very unique item. But it did take some time, and there were some concerns, like, were we leaving people out? Was it difficult for them to transact? Was it hard for them to buy the NFTs? But I think that, right, we're still in we're not even like, we're in the batting cage warming up. We're still very early. This will be like a 10-year process. And I do think that the Apple glasses, I agree with that. That will be the form factor I think that people are very comfortable with, and it will be very easy to attain. But the opportunity in terms of revenue, top line, and really changing how people can monetize not only their content, but also their products. Bottom line, every single retail NFT has been a screaming success. And I think as more and more companies understand that, we're going to continue to see growth. But you have to leave kind of the world that we've been in behind, right? The idea that retailers are all rushing to buy land in the metaverse, right? It goes back to what was said. They're trying to recreate exactly what they had in the physical world. And I think we have to think about it differently.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up to that, Deborah. You said a lot of the retail NFTs had huge success over the last year, and I think they were before their time, right? Once we have augmented reality and you can actually wear NFTs on top of you, they become, more important than clothes or, paintings on your wall. They will have big use cases. But where do you see NFTs as, a large use case? As sort of these, large tech companies make their metaverses, because all the metaverses that can be created don't necessarily need to be run on blockchain from the beginning. So where do you see that first adoption? Because we did see a large correction inside of NFTs as far as profile pictures and things like that.
Well, I just want to say one follow-up is that I do think this interoperability challenge that we have right now, right, that to me, right, we need to have one currency that we can use to make it easier for more mass adoption. So I do think there are still kind of some of the building blocks that we have along the way, right? And we're all on these different chains, as you mentioned and pointed out. I do think there's a simplicity that we will see. There will hopefully be one tech company that is the backbone of this. But I will say one more thing. What we've seen when we've done events, that people do show up. Yes, the numbers in Decentraland and Sandbox, right? They are low. But when you have an event, we will get 50,000, 60,000 people to show up, and 70% of people who buy the NFTs are new customers. So we are seeing use cases consistently, and this is, even very recently. But yes, I agree. There are still some challenges around simplicity.
Yeah. And also, I think the view of the retail public is very myopic. They think NFTs are just art, right? When it can be any data that, may not even need to be transferred or cannot be sold and so forth. So we won't get into that, but it branches much further.
Yeah. And I want to add that NFTs are drivers for things like tickets, memberships, experiences. So we work with a lot of musicians. And so we're tying in NFTs into experiential. And that gets back to what drives what I think will be the adoption, which the key is content. Content drives adoption, because that's kind of the honeypot to drive like audiences, eyeballs. And once you have eyeballs, then you have people who want to come and sell stuff to those eyeballs, right? So then that's where the monetization is. I mean, if you look at media was television, radio, newspaper driving people to watch content. And if you really look at Google, Facebook, and the big tech guys now, it's still eyeballs. Their main business is advertising, right? And that's because the eyeballs are there now, but now it's data driven. And I think Web3 just takes that to a further level, where you have addressability and you actually know who's watching, what are they watching, so that, because that's what advertisers want, is that they want to know, well, who am I selling to and how can I target them? And so I think that is really going to be the driver of adoption.
Yeah, interesting.
I would also add, Sam, that from the perspective of the user, of the end user in the metaverse, what the user is actually looking to do is to customize their experience and, to be able to be unique in how they express themselves. And so collectability of any sort of asset and the ability to be unique, to kind of, I guess, show off in the same way that you do in the real world, is something that the user is very interested in. And so it is about collectability, and not only the fact that the NFT represents art or not. If you're playing a game, for instance, you want to have your skins that make you unique, that make you different from everybody else. And so I think it's important to bear that in mind when you think about monetization of the actual metaverse.
Right. Yeah, and that's just going to, that individuality in the digital world will just move forward as we go, right? So to bring it back to Rex, I'm curious, you guys have a beautiful venue in Santa Monica, podcast stations, you have tons of creators coming in all the time. How are you seeing creators leverage the metaverse and leverage social engagement through all these tech platforms that allow them to have global reach?
Yeah, so at our studio, we provide a lot of different creator tools and spaces, and one of the things that we've been putting in is kind of a way for creators to jump into the metaverse. We're actually going to be putting in a 360 scanner, which will scan and basically take their digital imprint, so to speak. And we actually believe in this concept of essentially digital twins, where creators will have a digital intellectual property, right? And it's kind of like cloning yourself, but the digital version of it. And that will have a life of its own with intellectual property rights. And then we want to help represent, kind of like, think of it as virtual talent agency, right? Where their digital likeness is now of value, right? And it can be tracked because of the blockchain, NFTs, etc. But that identity can be used for things like games, metaverse, digital web presences, and right now with all the things that are going on, Chat GPT, as well as other ways of cloning and deep fakes, all this. So I mean, that's going to become very important, because now you have a digital version of yourself, right? And driven by AI that, in the next 5 to 10 years, will be very, very, very human-like. And so how do you represent that, and what's the next phase of using that?
Yeah, I look forward to getting a scan. And I know you're a filmmaker, so how have you been seeing, all of these things, digital humans and so forth, moving into film?
Yeah, I've definitely been making movies over the last number of decades, but very similar to what Rex mentioned, we have an agency called Worldwide XR that focuses on the digital personas of a lot of historical iconic estates. So we work with hundreds of historical families like Jackie Robinson's estate, Malcolm X's estate, Amelia Earhart's estate. For example, today, a part of Thunderbird and ASU, we've developed our own metaverse ecosystem, and we partnered with Space Force. And so this morning we had a rocket launch that was live from Cape Canaveral. And today we've launched that rocket in our live simulation inside the metaverse in our ecosystem. We partnered with the Amelia Earhart estate. Space Force licensed her name, image, and likeness for the name of the satellite. And so we're bringing the Space Force mission crew into the metaverse for this today at 9 a.m. to be able to talk about this live mission. We've developed digital rockets and digital satellites and other assets that are going to be put into the metaverse, which already exists there, but the user has the ability to scan markers inside the metaverse and bring those AR activations outside. And so again, very similar to Rex, we're very focused on the digital representation of a lot of historical estates. And we mentioned interoperability. So when you develop a digital human, whether it's volumetric capture or LiDAR scanning or whatever assets you're using or layers you're using to create these assets, it's a whole different world to bring them in and port them into these different metaverse ecosystems. The interoperability is not there yet. So based on the program, based on the metaverse ecosystem, you're having to pick whatever program, the relevance of that program. So that's something that we're doing right now.
Yeah, very interesting. Congratulations on that. That's a huge accomplishment. So Davos and the WEF is a huge multidisciplinary, hub. It brings together lots of people. You can see by all the different types of panels we offered today. A lot of people are scared of the metaverse, right? They see the lack of human connection as becoming a bad thing. We have an increase in mental illness. So I want to ask the question, which I don't think is asked enough, is the metaverse good for humanity? And I would love to hear, some stuff that people are working on that really points to the good created from the metaverse. Whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah, I can jump in. I think these metaverses, meta economies are very good for humanity. So a chance where someone with some, relatively available technology in a developing country can jump into an economy, right, through gaming or a metaverse, and they can start to participate in a way where they're not actually handicapped by their physical location. And maybe in some senses, they actually have an advantage due to their physical location, where it's much more lucrative for them to spend time in this virtual space than to spend time trying to make a buck in the physical space. So I can see that's really one powerful way. We've already seen it with some, of the gaming opportunities that are happening with like blockchain and people earning NFTs in these developing countries, and it being way more worth their time to do those sorts of things. I'm sure there's plenty of other ways, but that's definitely one that I see could be a huge advantage for everyone.
We're actually doing a lot in healthcare, the retailization of healthcare, if you will. And what we've actually seen is, especially with people very disconnected during the height of the crisis, that this ability to meet, to converse, to meet new people, to share ideas in the metaverse actually does have a positive impact that's measurable on mental health. And, this idea that you can also travel to new places in the metaverse, there's a democratization of many things that we're seeing. So somebody who may not be able to afford to travel to the Far East or to the Middle East, this way they are able to, kind of try new things, and they can participate in a conversation. Oh, I saw this when I went to Africa. I saw this when I went to Egypt. And that is, to me, what I think is incredibly special and unique, and will continue to drive this, because there really is this, like I said, it's a democratization of so many things that not everyone can enjoy. We have 189 million gamers in the United States. That's more than half of the US population. They on average spend 24 hours per week gaming. And so if we start to think about the hours where they're spent, there is a natural progression to the metaverse. And I think that there's a lot of data and there are a lot of, use cases. It just has to be, kind of easier for them to engage and to interact. And I think there's still a lot of, I think we've talked about here, there's a lot of misconceptions, myths that are, that we can all bust those myths in terms of helping people understand the ability to improve healthcare, mental health, and also to democratize. And to me, those are the three key aspects of a lot of the goodness that the metaverse brings.
And I would clarification, were you saying the average is something about 125 hours per week? I missed the detail
24
there.
hours per week.
24, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mentioned before, I received a deck this morning and they were just showing the, how popular gaming is. They compared daily active users of Bitcoin to daily active users of Candy Crush, and it was about 200 times larger for Candy Crush, right? So, gaming has huge potential. Anyone else want to jump in on that last question, the positives of the metaverse?
I would say that from a labor perspective, both use cases that were illustrated around travel and around gaming, and actually giving people the ability to participate in the economy and kind of create value in the economy. All of this creates jobs, right? When you think about those travel experiences, when you're thinking about those gaming experiences, and how with the new companies that started creating their own currencies and their NFTs, you can see that there are people actually working out of that, right? Creating value out of that for themselves and participating in the economy. And so I think from an economic perspective, if nothing else, it's there's a lot of money that will be made out of the metaverse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alvaro, I'm curious, at Swordfish Investments, where are you guys looking to see for outsized returns in this, once we leave this bear market?
Yeah, I think we're not likely to see the level that we've seen until now of speculation, given the downturn in recent months. And it was very easy for a smart investor to participate in an NFT drop a few months ago at kind of pre-sales levels, and just by speculating, make outsized returns out of that investment. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore as the ecosystem matures. There will be cases of that, but I think it will be much less general than it was last year or a few months ago. So I think in general, when you look at the technology from a top-down perspective, you've got opportunities investing in the blockchain technology that underpins the whole metaverse and NFT economy. You've got the opportunity to invest in specific projects, but those projects are now going to be scrutinized much more closely in order to understand the specific use case of what you're investing in. And so for anybody, we've been talking about film and entertainment, for anybody that actually manages to create that content that is relevant for a specific audience, I think there will be a massive amount of value to be created. There's a lot of opportunity in bringing existing non-digital assets into the digital world, and ownership of, I'm thinking of things like comics, in the metaverse. And so, but also even brands are doing a lot of e-commerce related brands are doing a lot of NFT drops now in the metaverse. So there is value to be had. I think people will be much more vigilant in terms of what's behind what's offered.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. We're going to be wrapping up here. Just maybe ask our in-person participant, is there anything you want to leave the Digital Davos community with on this topic?
Yeah, I think, Deborah mentioned something earlier, this is the, kind of the early part of the season. If we're use baseball as an analogy, we're not even really at the first inning of the first game of the season. This is a huge economy. It's $1 trillion industry within the next decade, and it's all evolving right here, right now. To me, it's a whole new line in the sand, and it's an opportunity for a lot of businesses and brands to be able to compete and create experiences and obviously showcase their brands or their businesses to the masses by using these new technologies. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, it's a new era.
Yeah. Thank you all for attending. Have a good evening or morning, wherever you're located.
Thank you.